On this Wednesday night, promotions and demotions. The Prime Minister unveils his new inner circle.
What a team.
Who's in, who's out of cabinet, and what difference does this shakeup really make? The soaring price of rice, why it's become a hot commodity, prompting panic buying. What's really out there?
Oh my gosh!
The claims made at an American hearing on UFOs. Plus, she was provocative, powerful, and polarizing.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made sweeping changes to his cabinet today. About 2/3 of his top MPs have either been shuffled to new portfolios or completely removed in an attempt to reboot a government ahead of the next federal election. There were several new faces in the crowd and some key absences as Trudeau lined up alongside cabinet ministers for the ceremonial family photo today. Those out of this new cabinet include some of Trudeau's best-known ministers, former Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino and former Justice Minister David Lametti are two of the 7 who have been cut. Replacing them are all newcomers to cabinet, including Arif Virani, who will replace Lametti and become Canada's new Attorney General. We'll talk about why all this matters in a moment, but first, Mackenzie Gray takes us through the changes in tonight's top story.
It's the group Justin Trudeau hopes will change the political channel and win him the next election.
This is the team that is going to be able to continue the hard work, rolling up their sleeves and delivering for Canadians.
To do that, the Prime Minister has made a staggering 30 changes to cabinet, with a renewed focus on the economy. Anita Anand leaves defence for the lower-profile Treasury Board, joining up with new Housing Minister Sean Fraser to complement the existing economic team, in direct response to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's focus on housing and inflation.
We have to deliver the homes, the infrastructure, the jobs, the economy, the investment for a growing country.
I, Richie Valdez.
An emotional moment for one of the 7 new additions, Richie Valdez sworn as the new small business minister, along with Arif Virani, replacing David Lametti as Justice Minister after his surprising removal. Terry Beach gets the newly created and loosely defined Citizen Services portfolio.
I met my deputy minister about 5 minutes ago. She handed me a piece of paper with a whole bunch of bullet points on it, but I'm less than an hour in, so I'm going to get fully briefed.
23 of the changes today, internal swaps. The biggest, Dominic LeBlanc, in charge of establishing a public inquiry into Chinese interference at public safety. Pascal Saint-Onge in at Heritage. She'll be tasked with getting the tech giants on side with the new Online News Act. And Mark Miller, set to take over at Immigration, leaving Crown Indigenous Relations.
I am sad. It doesn't mean that my relationships that I've built with Indigenous leaders and just members of communities are going away.
Only 7 ministers kept the same job, and despite all the changes, the Prime Minister believes things are running smoothly.
Is today's changes an admission that things have not gone well for your government in 2023?
On the contrary, I'm excited about this team and I'm excited about the work we're going to be able to do together.
But the polls would indicate otherwise. The Liberals are now 10 points back from the Conservatives, according to Abacus data, their worst position at any point during Justin Trudeau's tenure as Prime Minister. Donna? Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks. Cabinet shuffles happen in every government, and it is the prerogative of the Prime Minister to decide who goes where. It's not always obvious, though, to outsiders why some moves are made. For some analysis, our Ottawa Bureau Chief Mercedes Stephenson is with me. Mercedes, what stood out to you in this cabinet overhaul?
Well, Donna, certainly a reset, but there are some things that aren't apparent to insiders either, including perhaps one of the most surprising moves of this shuffle. That was the moving of Defence Minister Anita Anand to the Treasury Board and replacing her with Bill Blair. Anand had expressed a personal commitment to addressing sexual misconduct in the military, and that file is far from complete. This is also changing the channel in the middle of the war in Ukraine and before a major policy review that will chart the future of the military is released. Blair was also seen seen as struggling when he was the public safety minister, and critics say that his appointment doesn't exactly scream the government's commitment to culture change, nor is he seen as high profile by some military leaders. A more predictable move, and a key one, is Dominic LeBlanc, who is now coming in as what I call the Minister of Everything. He will keep his current job, which is dealing with the provinces, but is also going to add on what has been an incendiary file for this government: public safety, dealing with everything from the future of the RCMP and CSIS to, of course, the anticipated possible inquiry into foreign interference, a certain hot potato file. And of course, the mishandling of this file and other public safety files is what pushed out his predecessor, Marco Mendicino.
Mercedes, critics say this is just a shuffling of people, that it won't change much when it comes to how the Liberals govern and what they deliver or fail to deliver. What's your sense of that?
Donna, this was really about a total reset for cabinet, and you don't see this kind of overhaul unless the Prime Minister feels the status quo isn't working. And that feeling is backed up by the polls. The Liberals have been trailing the Conservatives in consecutive polls. They're under a lot of pressure on the affordability file with housing and with inflation, plus a series of high-profile political missteps. And Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader's messaging, is gaining traction, especially in a changing political environment. This is what he had to say earlier today.
His government is a failure. It's funny, though. The one minister who is responsible for these failures didn't get moved, and that minister is Justin Trudeau.
Now, Donna, this shuffle puts plenty of enthusiastic new political faces in who don't have baggage. But for it to be anything more than a cosmetic facelift, the Trudeau government will have to put policies in to match. The Prime Minister has left some highly criticized ministers in their files, including Chrystia Freeland. And of course, there's a lot of the same senior decision makers behind the scenes.
Okay, Mercedes Stephenson in Ottawa, thanks. There's some sad news about a woman who pioneered roles for women in Canada. Former Senator Pat Carney has died. Carney was the first woman business columnist for a major daily newspaper, and after her election as a Conservative MP from BC in 1980, she was the first woman in every post she held, including Minister of Energy, International Trade, and President of the Treasury Board. Carney was 88 years old. Now to the impact extreme weather is having on food. India has banned the export of certain kinds of rice, a stunning move for a nation that is the world's largest exporter of rice. Heavy rains wiped out paddy fields, and the Indian government says it must protect the domestic supply of rice. As Mike Drolet reports, it's already set off unnecessary panic buying, including here in Canada.
Saji Mangaltu had a feeling his small Toronto store was in for a rush on rice. As soon as India announced it was banning the export of small and medium grain rice, he set a limit of 1 bag per customer.
Some of them even go out and come back because we put one per limit, and they come back, or they send their friend, or they send the husband in so that we don't know them.
And when that didn't work, he says some got aggressive.
Give me the rice. Here is the money, give me the rice.
Forcing him to take the extraordinary measure of kicking customers out of the store. Panic buying has set in. Video from Texas shows customers climbing store shelves and buying as much as they can fit in a shopping cart. And that's partly contributed to a surge in prices. The benchmark Thai white rice is now trading for over $500 a ton, up over $100 from pre-pandemic levels.
So we are expecting many countries to run out. Rice is the most important food ingredient used in the world. 3.5 to 4 billion people rely on rice to support their diets.
India instituted the ban to keep domestic prices from increasing. But the supply issue relates to weather. Alternating flood and drought-like conditions in Asia have hurt production. Thailand, the world's second largest exporter, is only getting one crop this year. And Vietnam says it will curb exports over the next few years to ensure domestic food security. And while concerning, Canada gets the majority of its rice imports from the U.S., and the most popular Indian rice, basmati, is not affected by the ban. But panic, says Sylvain Charlebois, has proven to be contagious.
Protectionism hurts everyone on earth, and as soon as you see a government panic, it really creates a ripple effect around the globe.
Royal Kerala Foods, for one, is doing its part by not feeding into the frenzy, while hoping for the ban to be short-lived. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
Tonight, 9 Mediterranean countries are continuing to battle wildfires as searing heat and towering flames sweep across parts of southern Europe and North Africa. In the Greek capital, it was 42 degrees today, and exhausted fire crews have battled about 600 wildfires in Greece in the last 12 days. Wildfires are also burning in Algeria and into Tunisia, forcing thousands of people there from their homes. Crystal Goomansingh looks at how this unfolding climate crisis is affecting people.
There's no panic in the ranks, but the men know with the flames at their feet, they're running out of time.
We fight. Everybody, all the people, they fight. The simple people, the government, they ask everybody, but for nothing. I believe we fight for nothing.
Government officials say only a small portion of Rhodes, a hugely popular island with tourists, was destroyed by fires. But for those who have lost their livelihoods, the line seems out of step.
My restaurant, everything, it's take a fire. Also my mom's house and my house in the village.
Climate scientists working with the World Weather Attribution Initiative studying the latest heat wave in Europe and subsequent fires in near real time blame human-caused climate change. In Palermo, Italy, people made terrifying journeys to get to safety. West of Lisbon, Portuguese fire crews and volunteers worked Tuesday night to tamp down flames threatening a national park. And fires along Algeria's Mediterranean coast led to the deaths of at least 34 people. Algerian Civil Protection Services say 15 fires have been burning across 8 regions. This forest ranger section chief says calmer conditions are helping compared to Monday. The World Meteorological Organization reports Europe is the fastest warming of its regions, warming twice as much as the global average since the 1980s. All the more reason why the European Union says it's moving to double its aerial firefighting capacity.
We are in the climate crisis. It's already here. It is not unexpected. The scientists have been telling us about this.
But the new planes won't arrive for 2 years at the earliest, leaving people and wildlife across the continent to rely on each other to survive in ever more frequent extreme conditions. Crystal Goomansingh, Global News, London.
They put their lives on the line to save others. Coming up, gratitude for first responders in Nova Scotia's flood zone. In Nova Scotia, the search is still on for one person missing after the flash flooding last weekend. The bodies of 3 other people have now been recovered, 2 children and a 52-year-old man. When the water was at its peak, dozens of people were rescued, including firefighters who were working to save others. Mike Armstrong has their remarkable story.
The aftermath of the storm doesn't necessarily help you understand just how bad things got. There were 3 rescues at this spot, including 2 firefighters who were swept away. The video was shot by Jason Ripley with, he says, his hands shaking.
There was just this one moment where I'm standing there in the water and there's thunder and lightning everywhere and I'm not a great swimmer. And I'm thinking, holy, what have I got myself into? And then you push through it.
The flash flooding that did this damage was destructive and deceptive. People didn't know it was coming.
Carney Road to 215.
This couple stayed in their home too long and only got out with the help of their landlord and a firefighter.
One short mistake on our part, or the people that rescued us, we could have been gone.
Now, the next door neighbor stayed even longer and now knows that was a mistake.
I wouldn't have made it without the firemen.
Kimberly Gillingham was being helped through a meter of rushing water when she and the firefighter fell into this hole and were swept away.
The fireman kept a hold of me, and if he didn't, I wouldn't be alive. Like, he held on to me so tight, thank God. And yeah, it's just crazy.
One of the things you hear from people is that as bad as the loss of life was, and it was terrible, there's no question about it, there's almost shock that it wasn't even worse.
I think it would be very hard for the general public to comprehend the magnitude of everything that went on early Saturday morning and later into the day.
Well, the rescues were too quick for there to be actual official numbers. It's likely in the hundreds, but there is appreciation. Gillingham will have surgery on a leg next week, and she also has a firefighter she has to thank.
Logan Hope. God sent me some hope. Logan Hope.
It was pretty hard. It was definitely the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Well, Hope credits his crew with saving his life in what was a day no one involved will ever forget. Wow. And everyone knows could have been worse. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Windsor, Nova Scotia.
Cover-up claims ahead. The U.S. government accused of hiding information about UFOs.
Oh.
This terrifying moment happened in New York City this morning. A high-rise construction crane struck another building, then crashed down on Manhattan streets, sending people running for their lives. At least 6 people have minor injuries, including 2 firefighters who responded. A fire had broken out inside the crane's engine compartment. Fire officials say the heat weakened a cable carrying around 14 metric tons of concrete, and that triggered the collapse. The cause of the fire is being investigated. There was an unusual and unworldly hearing in Washington today. U.S. lawmakers heard from a whistleblower who claims UFOs are not only real, he says the U.S. government has evidence and is hiding it. No proof of that has emerged, but as the number of sightings of so-called unidentified aerial phenomena soars, it's fueling a push to make the public fully aware of what the U.S. government knows. Jackson Prosco reports.
Dozens of close encounters have been reported but never explained.
My gosh! We're going to uncover the cover-up.
If you believe the testimony to American lawmakers, the truth is not only out there, it's in the hands of the U.S. government.
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
A former Air Force intelligence officer claims the U.S. has secret knowledge of vehicles that defy explanation. UFOs, or what the military calls unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Have you met with people with direct knowledge or have direct knowledge yourself of non-human origin craft?
Yes.
Retired Major David Grush testified the U.S. has not only recovered craft, but in some cases, their occupants, though he admits he hasn't seen it himself.
Biologics came with some of these recoveries. Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to.
Grush was flanked by 2 Air Force pilots who say they've personally seen things in the sky they also can't explain.
If everyone could see the sensor and video data I witnessed, our national conversation would change.
If the hearing was meant to solve the mystery, it only deepened it, with more details than not left to the imagination.
I can't discuss that publicly. Once again, I can't discuss that publicly. I can't discuss that in an open session.
The Pentagon denies claims of a cover-up. Some of the sightings have been ruled out with less interesting explanations, like weather balloons.
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and it is a long walk from triangles in the sky to this must be aliens.
Without firm answers, those who've witnessed UAPs argue there needs to be more government transparency over what's known about the unknown. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
The secret of the waterside.
She was beyond compare. Next, remembering Irish singer Sinead O'Connor. There are a few voices that cut through all the noise. Sinead O'Connor's was one of them, and there's sad news about her today. She has died at the age of 56. Rebellious, uncompromising, and courageous, she was an exceptional talent, able to sing in a whisper or fill an entire stadium. Her family gave no details on the cause of death. O'Connor was open about her mental illness and was devastated by the loss of her son a year ago.